simple because it's hard to. So yes, the quiz will start with naming the title of the presentation verbatim, exactly. So I won't. I'll show you what that title actually really means in a bit. But first, I just like to say just a little bit on why. A lot of the people here, the questions that they ask me are, why did I go into science? But maybe I'll turn the question around and say, why would I not want to go into science if my office is like this? So I think it's a big draw that my office is configured and designed like this, and then my meetings are with these creatures, and I get to explore in minute detail what I'm really interested and passionate about. So I get to go and do the experiments and the studies to figure out answers to questions that I'm really interested in exploring. And it's not so bad that the building and office I do the work in looks like this. So going back to what I actually do, or what I want to do for this project, basically I want to start with making you familiar with the concept of the food web. So we as humans eat these, your caldereta, or of course your beef. So we are the top predators and we eat these, but what do they eat? They eat your grass or your photosynthetic, your plants or your primary producer. So they are the ones that are found at the base of your food chain or food web. So we as a planet are relying on these marine plants, the terrestrial plants and the marine plants, because we are also harvesting fishes. And the ones that are equivalent to the goats and your cows are these microscopic animals, which are called zooplankton. So these are just really, really tiny. It's about a millimeter. Some of them you can see just what you saw in the video doing like this with the bottle. That was, you can see some of those organisms moving around sometimes when they're still alive. But what they eat, which is equivalent to the grass, are these, again, still obviously microscopic plants, the algae or phytoplankton. So you have lots of different types of this. And there's a lot, millions and millions and millions in the ocean. So we as a planet rely on these base organisms, the base of our food web, for our own lives and our own food. So the phytoplankton that is underlying the marine food chain, ultimately this leads to the fisheries that many in our country rely on for the livelihood. Unfortunately, there are certain circumstances that leads for these microscopic plants, or the phytoplankton, to become harmful to us. And those are what you call the harmful algal blooms, or HABs, as I'll refer to in this presentation for short. So that can cause a lot of, as you know, this is commonly called the red tide, or there are cases that leads to the fish kill as well. So harmful algal bloom, or HABs, is a generic term for the phenomenon leading to red tide, or sometimes the fish kill. So HABs can cause poisoning, fatalities, and obviously economic losses. And right now, this is what the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources has put out as a shellfish bulletin of the areas that are being impacted by your red tide. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. The phytoplankton are very important for us, for our food, in the food web, but also if there are not so good conditions that lead to certain types becoming dominant, then that would lead to your not so good scenarios of HABs. So basically the research is aiming to look at the changes in the phytoplankton types and the environmental conditions accompanying those phytoplankton types in two areas. So a productive fisheries area, So there's a large biomass of these phytoplankton, but there are no HABs. And then the other side is a HAB site. So trying to figure out what are the mechanisms going on as the different types are changing in two different sites, but one is leading to harmful algal blooms and one is actually a productive fisheries area. So the first site would actually be in the northeast side of the Philippines, the Bicol Shelf area, Salamon Bay. And this is a productive fisheries area with a lot of oceanic, exciting ocean circulation features coming from the Pacific. And this is a site for a lot of rabbit fish or your danggit, and also your tuna. So there's a lot of tuna in that area as well. And then the second site has been experiencing red tide for pretty long, several years already. And so they've experienced a lot of shellfish bans in that bay. So Sorsogon Bay here, and again, it's more on the northeast side of the Philippines. So those comparing what's happening at the base of the food chain and leading to HABs versus a productive fisheries. So what we will do with that information, we will, as part of other projects as well, we're developing computer models. So we're taking that knowledge that we will obtain from this project and other complementary projects to develop robust computer models that can be used for management and mitigation of harmful algal blooms. So I don't want to go into details of this, but this is a prototype model that we've developed for Sorsogon Bay, showing the bloom of those phytoplankton cells and being moved by water in different conditions. So that's what we hope to attain from that. So I think that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for Fwis and all my collaborators in other projects and funding sources. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah. What did we learn? It's more fun in the Philippines. No, I'm just kidding. Can you